So yesterday, a pretty big story broke out of Bloomberg with a new report from Jason Schreier going over Sony's big plans heading into 2022 to more or less revamp their online subscription offerings with PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus, bringing up something codenamed Spartacus. And it appears like Sony is looking to make a big push with their own competitor to Microsoft's Game Pass. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. So first, let's head over here. This posted up, like I said, over on Bloomberg by Jason Schreier saying PlayStation plans new service to take on Xbox Game Pass. Now, this, again, codenamed Spartacus, appears to be Sony's answer to Game Pass, but it won't, I guess, 100% be positioned the exact same way because it will not have brand new titles from Sony for the PS5 dropped into the service, much like Microsoft is basically just putting all of their first-party games into the service day one. You don't actually have to buy the game outright for $60 or $70. If you're subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate and paying that monthly subscription service, you'll just be able to download the game and start playing it. But the reason I think a lot of people are seeing this as their answer to Game Pass is because it's going to be a subscription service that is going to be built up with a ton of content, with some of it being PS5 titles, yes, but Jim Ryan has openly said that they are planning a response to Game Pass. Here's an example from an interview with TASS last year, I believe. Asking, how will you respond to Microsoft's Game Pass? There is actually news to come, but just not today. Goes on further to help sell PlayStation Now, which Sony's been doing a bad job around marketing PlayStation Now. People still think it's just a streaming service, which you can download like 80% of the games on PlayStation Now, but they started out as just a streaming platform and they really never worked to push that messaging hard. Certainly not how Microsoft has worked to push Game Pass in the past year or so. Anyway, let's talk a bit about some of the tiers that are described here, as this will have multiple options based on how much you want to pay versus how much content you will be getting. So at least according to Bloomberg, it's outlined with 3 different tiers. Tier 1 would be the PlayStation Plus benefits. Tier 2 would be PS4 and PS5 games. So very similar to what you have with PlayStation Now currently, just no streaming, as that is being held for Tier 3, I assume the most expensive tier. That would have extended demos, game streaming, and a classic game library with PS1, PS2, PS3, and PlayStation portable games. And I think that's the part that everyone kind of stopped and paid attention to this report, because there has been a lot of calls for Sony to do more with their legacy software. However, Jim Ryan has not seemed that interested in it, and he has talked about in interviews over the last year that his comments around Gran Turismo that he made, like, who wants to play that after seeing the graphics? And look, there are a lot of us who have those nostalgia goggles on when we see a PS1 or a PS2 game that we're very fond of, and yeah, it might be Gran Turismo from the original PlayStation, to the point where there are a lot of us who would be willing to pay out for a subscription service if the library was good. Now, there are a lot of questions when it comes to this Tier 3 in the codenamed Spartacus subscription service, and that has to do with, would these be native experiences or would these be streaming experiences? I feel like for PS1, PS2, and PSP, they would be native experiences because we already have like PS2 games native, that's right, on PlayStation Now currently. Once again, something that Sony really does not market at all is that you have some PS2 games you just download and play on your PS5 right now through the PlayStation Now service. The one system that you 100% have to stream is the PlayStation 3, which is unfortunate, and I would like to think that Sony, if they really wanted to, and they really wanted to make a run at this thing for this subscription service, that they would have created their own in-house PS3 emulator that they could then attach to this new service, and everything across the board would be native. Of course, though, that's in a perfect world. My expectation here would just be that it's streamed. But still, having PS1, PS2, and PSP games be native, something you just download through the service and play on your PS5 right on your TV, potentially with some visual improvements, even especially for the PSP that's going to be blown up. I mean, that's still exciting stuff because there's a vast library of games from those generations that are phenomenal experiences that would be really cool to have just as like a Netflix or Game Pass style service. You sign in and you start downloading games and play them. Like some of the JRPGs from back then are the most creative games ever. I mean, that was an awesome period in time for gaming that I would love for more people to be able to revisit, especially if you've come into the gaming space a bit more recently. Even the PS3 has some really cool creative stuff. So that's one of the reasons I would like to see that be a native experience with an emulator that Sony's developed. We've seen open source, Patreon-backed emulators like RCPS3. That is one that has had tremendous success emulating different PS3 games. You need some pretty beefy hardware to do that with your PC, but still, it is possible, and that's just people working on it, not necessarily a large company like Sony employing people to do it. I would also be curious if these games that are being brought up for this service from PS1, PS2, PS3, or PSP, while they would be part of basically a subscription that you would have and just be able to download them, if you could also just buy them, like outright. You just make the purchase, it's on your PlayStation 5, and you can just play it whenever you want without necessarily having to be reliant on a monthly fee. Because we see with Nintendo, for example, you can't do that with the 64 games, a Super Nintendo or Nintendo. That would be kind of frustrating, I think, for people who just want to buy the games. They don't necessarily want to pay a monthly fee of $10 or $15 a month, which we'll get the pricing here in a second. So I hope that's something else that Sony is at least considering, because they could at least tie it in. Look, if you have the tier 1, which is basically PlayStation Plus from what's being described here, maybe you get a discount on some of those PS1 titles. It gets knocked down 10% or something. So you would still have access to those games if you want to pay out for each one individually. The other part of this, of course, is the emulation. Hopefully it would be good enough, because we just saw Nintendo get absolutely crushed for the poor emulation that they've presented with their Nintendo 64 game. So hopefully Sony doesn't have another outing like they had with the PS1 Classic. As for pricing, this is the part where it gets a bit hard to predict. Mostly because we're seeing them apparently merge together PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now. And at least according to the report, Sony is leaning more towards keeping the PlayStation Plus branding over PlayStation Now, which I completely understand, because they haven't done a lot to market PlayStation Now. And people who are more casual in games, who maybe buy Call of Duty or Madden, are aware of PlayStation Plus because they need it to play online for those games. So they may not know what PlayStation Now is, but oh, what's this, PlayStation Plus Platinum or PlayStation Plus Gold, or however they want to go ahead and market it as a more premium tier. Maybe I'll look into that, and boom, all of a sudden they find their way into basically PlayStation Now. So we have 3 different tiers. We have one that is PlayStation Plus, basically. I assume that's just going to stay at $60 a year. Like, that seems pretty straightforward. But then you get into tier 2, and it's essentially merging part of PlayStation Now with PlayStation Plus. PlayStation Plus is PlayStation Now is $60 a year. PlayStation Plus is $60 a year. So if you combine them, $120 a year. But then you bring in their legacy software as well. Could we be looking at something that may be charged similar or priced similar to what Game Pass Ultimate charges, $15 a month? I think it's possible that Sony might try that. However, they could even start at something like $12 a month, $12.99 a month. Maybe they really try to get people on board early and just go $10 a month and call it there, just by combining both subscriptions together. To me, that's the best case scenario, because I don't think they're going to do all of this, take both, smash them together, and then do like a discount and make it $100 a year. I think for a while, PlayStation Now was $100 a year. It's actually been going down in price over the last year or two. And in fact, I kind of think they might go the route of just doing monthly. So rather than say, oh, it's $60 a year, these tiers will be broken up into monthly charges. So for example, tier 1, which is basically just PlayStation Plus, that probably would just stay at $5 per month, or like $4.99 or something. And then you might move up to tier 2 and could be $8 a month, or maybe even they just go $5, $10, and $15. It's going to be something to watch here to see how Sony approaches this pricing, because it sounds like it's not at all locked in internally now based on what's being said on this report and what others are saying online currently. So we'll see. Hopefully Sony comes in with a compelling price point and a ton of content, because it is exciting to hear that Sony could be going back and getting all of this legacy software and throwing it all into one subscription that some people may already be essentially paying for, especially if you're already doing PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now. You're already paying $120 a year. So if they show up and it's like $150 a year, you might look at that and say, that's kind of worth it. But we'll see how they approach this. And I guess the fact that they are not doing day one releases like Game Pass does kind of put it below it, right? Because it's not getting that. However, there are going to be people who look at this and say, you know what? It's worth it to me because I like those older games, much like some people, subscribe to the N64 tier, the expansion pack tier for Nintendo because they like those games, even if the emulation isn't great and the offering isn't the best right now. So we'll see how this goes for Sony as we approach 2022. I would assume they're going to make this announcement in like the first quarter, maybe in a state of play, or who knows, maybe just push it through a PlayStation blog post. But exciting stuff here. Let me know what you guys think about this one, though, because I'm interested to see what Sony has to offer with PS1, PS2, PS3, and PSP library games being thrown into a subscription service. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.